let me show you the behind the scenes of what it's like to make a sculpture. Just wanted to let you know that this project that I was working on did not work out so well. But yeah, it's good to bring you all behind the scenes to show you what it's like realistically and what it feels like when a project doesn't go your way. So here I have a cylindrical form that I've thrown on the wheel. I would say my first mistake here was actually making it a little too thick and sort of keeping the base. So what happened was, to give you a brief context, was that my sculpture broke when I was being fired in the kiln. And I think, I sort of expected it, but I think it didn't really hit me until it actually happened. But yeah, this is just me attaching the head. This is what it looks like before it gets sculpted. I'm just looking at where I'm going to place it, and then I start working on it. I think I also shown this sculpture, I think, in my first video. This was around the same time that I was making that video. So I think that was maybe about like 2 months ago in April. And that was when I actually started the sculpture. And it took me quite a while for it to finish. Like, I started building this in 2 weeks. Like, I finished building it in 2 weeks. But the drying process took very long, and I think that was the issue in itself. So that wasn't great. The drying took like about a month just cause it was so thick. Like, layers were too thick. Like, the vessel itself was already thick, and then I was adding on the base to it, which was not. And when I mean the base, I mean the base of the cylindrical form that I had. That was also way too thick, and that just delayed the process of it drying, and hence actually why it broke, because there was still quite a lot of moisture in there as well. This is just me working on ×2 speed. Not sure exactly what to say here, just cause looking back on this now, I would say it's quite nostalgic. And I think when it first broke, I was very much devastated. Like, I think that was when I had my first breakdown. So it's quite nice to actually look back on it and reflect on how I built it and how I could have done it better. There was a really good tip that an associate from the jam factory gave me, and it was because we were pretty much theorizing why it broke. And one of the reasons, or one of the theories that we came up with, was the tension of the clay. And I think that was actually one of the main reasons why it didn't turn out so well, was because one, my vessel was hand built. So that means the particles in the clay were all just wonky, going all over the place. And my cylindrical form is spun on the wheel, so the particles are going in a circular motion, and I think attaching a circular motion, particles with a circular motion, together with a hand-built form with particles that are going all over the place, I think that created tension between both forms, and that was what caused it to break, which I found very interesting. I was actually just more like mind blown when I heard this. I was like, wow, oh my gosh, who would have thought? But it made a lot of sense. Here I'm just sort of attaching the ears to the face, and it's just really interesting now that I'm looking back on this, because when I first built this, I remember not knowing what expression I wanted on the wolf, and ears play a very big part in telling an emotion, especially when it comes to animals. And this one just ended up looking really scared rather than fierce, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. And I think this is also the one where after I finished recording, I ended up scraping it and just redoing the whole entire thing. It was not a good experience. I remember this one. Just here, I think I could feel myself being very indecisive and not knowing how I wanted it to feel. It ended up looking very rat-like, very sewer rat rather than a wolf. So I wanted it to look strong, and I wanted it to look cunning, like mischievous, sneaky. That was what I wanted it to feel. But it just ended up feeling very weird. I remember like looking at a lot of like wolf references, just studying the anatomy of the head and making sure I got it right because it was stressful. And this is what it looks like. The outcome. This is what it looks like when it's done after all the carving and all the details. So it ended up looking quite different from when I first built it on video. And this is what it's going to look like when it's all done. Also, pro tip before I forget, I use these little underglaze applicators to make the teeth of the wolves. I put slip in there, and then after that I start just squeezing it out into like little, like the one example I can think of is like sand dunes, so to make it look like a little cone shape. So this is my first time using an airbrush method to color my pieces. As you can see, I'm actually using a black slit this time to spray all over my wolves and sort of have an even finish, which I thought was simple, but it is not. I realized I think I could have done this better. As you can see here, I'm testing it on a cup, but I forgot to close the lid. Oh my god, you'll see an accident in a bit. There we go. I spilled some slip. Oopsies. And now we start airbrushing. I think how I could have done this better was maybe kept my sculpture sort of to an eye level. That way I could sort of see everything. I realized that spraying from a top angle made me miss certain spots, such as like underneath the chin. Like I realized, it wasn't colored. So that was a bit of an oopsie. But other than that, I'm really happy with how the color came out. It was such a good solid black. And like I made the slip myself, which I was very proud of. I used a black stain. Oh, I forgot what exactly I put in that, but I remember putting a black stain, and yeah, I'm just so proud of how it came out. And here I'm using a sponge to sort of clean up certain areas. I realized that also, because this is again my first time airbrushing, I didn't really know how to keep it all even. So some places, in some areas, started pulling a little bit with slip, which is also again my bad. But I would say this was a really fun experience. Like airbrushing your pieces is such a satisfying feeling. Although the cleaning, however, is not satisfying. I think cleaning up took me like an hour because I also got slip everywhere, just of how clumsy I am. But yeah, I really liked the result. It was a good experience. And now this is when the worst has happened. So after letting it dry for like about a month, it still wasn't dry enough. Couldn't wait anymore. And oh, forgot to mention, this piece was also for a competition, hence why I was also kind of rushing it a little bit and stressing just because I was reaching that deadline pretty close. And initially, my plan was to also put was it a gold luster? I think it was a gold or a mother of pearl luster on it. after I was done glazing it. And mind you, I have not even started the glazing process. So I was quite stressed to say the least. So yeah, I chucked it into the kiln for a bisque firing, and that was when it broke. So this is what happened after the firing. I think about four of the heads came off. One of it was quite broken, as you can see, the mouth fell off as well. And at this point, I didn't know what to do. And I think I wasn't in like a right headspace to actually continue doing it. I felt really tired. Um, just didn't know what to do. And I think I just had to sort of just keep it in a corner. And I think only when I felt ready enough, I started working on it again. It was really nice as well during this period to sort of get feedback from lots of people and have them look at it from a different perspective. Some of them recommended me that I just stop working on it and just like throw it, not really throw it, but just sort of keep it aside. Don't work on it, don't even bother. Whereas other people were telling me to sort of patch it up, maybe I could kintsugi it. Yeah, it was very interesting reactions from people, and in the end I decided to continue it. But I didn't want to rush myself as well. Like deep down I was still feeling so upset. I think more so because I think there was pressure from myself and wanting to sort of do better. And I think at that time when this broke, I felt like a failure. Even though it's normal that things in ceramics break, but I think just at that moment I felt like a failure. I think I've let myself down. But if anything, from what I've learned from this experience, is that I really truly do appreciate the people around me. Not only was I, getting good feedback from the people that I work with, it was interesting to hear their perspectives, their words of wisdom that they gave me. And I could truly apply it to my work and the future sculptures that I make. And also just like my friends and my family that have like comforted me, when I was going through all this. It feels really nice to know that people care about you. And I am truly so appreciative of that. And when I was ready to finally work on my sculpture again, I was ready to repair it, and I was in a much better headspace. I decided to super glue it back together. I didn't exactly know what I was doing, but I think at this point I was just sort of more in a experimental phase. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And that's completely fine. So I bought like this like super glue that's meant for like ceramics and wood from Daiso. Used that, and I mean it ended up sticking, which was really great. But it started having like these like this like chemical reaction, and there was like this like white dust that was starting to form. And so what I did was I used like black texture, or if you call it black marker, to sort of fill that up and cover up the white stuff that was going on. And it was a very interesting experiment, Sure, it's not completely clay anymore, but it's fun to try out new things once in a while. And after that was done, I could still see some of the cracks, and I didn't really like that. So I took like some black epoxy resin from the production room, and I used a little bit of it to sort of cover up the cracks, and it created this really cool effect. It was like a bit like spider webby. I just don't know how to describe it, but it ended up looking really good, and I'm actually proud of how it came out. And this is the end result. I honestly couldn't be happier. I'm so glad that I got the closure to finally move on and still be able to finish this, even though it wasn't what I expected. And I think because of this, I feel like I have more confidence now to approach new sculptures with so much more knowledge. And I don't know, I'm I'm excited to create more new things. So I hope you guys will stick around to see that in the future. And I will see you next time.